Hi, I'm Carla Cannon, and I wanted to talk today about how we are going to approach some Canadian history this year. I did a previous video talking about what we had done for the Canadian provinces. So we studied about a lot of geography and smidgy of history, but really not much. Because I wanted to really dive into Canadian history in a chronological order and have the kids have some background and knowledge about where things were. So for us, that worked out really well. Of course, you can do it a million different ways, but for our family, it worked out, it simplified it for us to do our provinces, and so now the kids are familiar kind of with the landscape, where things are, and then to build on that, now we're diving into the history aspect. So, and it's been really neat because it's a fun way for them to review what we learned about the provinces, because I'm like, okay, like, you know, when they came into Hudson's Bay, they're like, oh, we remember where that is. So yeah, that's how we've broken it down into a manageable amount. And so I really wanted to make history exciting and alive for my kids. My mom, who many of you know, did just an amazing job of that growing up for us. History to me growing up was not a dull subject. It wasn't boring. It was, when we studied history, it's like we went back in time and we got to know historical characters like they were our friends. You know, they seemed like real people to us. We read living books, books that were interesting. History was not something out of a textbook for us. And I didn't even know that some people found history boring until my first university history class, and I sat down and was listening and looking at the textbook. I thought, oh my goodness, that's not what history is. And then I quickly transferred out of that class and found a better one. But anyways, so I just had such a great background with history growing up, and I wanted to share that with my kids. And so I was thinking, okay, how can we make this really fun? For our Canadian provinces, we spent a lot of time making a scrapbook about all the provinces, and that was something that we really enjoyed, but I wanted to streamline this a little bit more, so we're doing a timeline, but I bought one. We're not doing any writing for it, and I'll show you that, and that will make it zip along a little faster for us. And so how we're approaching it is, of course, first of all, of course, is reading. We have to read. Great books, for me, is the foundation of anything that we learn about. And so the main backbone of what we're using, bear in mind my kids are going into 5th grade. Naomi is turning 10 here in a couple weeks, and my son Nathan turned 7 a couple months ago, and he's going into grade 2. So this is the age range that I'm gearing this for, but you could easily add or take things away for older and younger. So anyways, then you know the background of where we're coming from. But so the basis for our reading is the kids' book of Canadian history. So this has been just a lovely book. It's not a big one, it's a hardback. You can get it on Amazon.ca, and it has just enough information that it's interesting, you know, a good amount for each day. Let me see here. So, you know, the meeting of cultures. This was, you know, about Samuel de Champlain, and then it's got like a little biography on him. And I've been really happy with this book. The kids enjoy it. We'll read a couple pages in our morning time when we sit down, and that's been working out great for us. Good amount of information, but not overwhelmingly so. And just doing a couple pages a day, sometimes 3, depending on how it flows, has been really good. So this is kind of the spine of our reading. I have another book. I don't believe these are in print anymore, but my point in showing you this is if you have other resources, you can tie them in as you want. This is from a Childcraft, old Childcraft encyclopedia, and it's the Childcraft Children's Story of Canada, not to be confused with another big thick book that's called The Story of Canada. So if you happen to have one of these laying around, it's good, but again, it's, you know, a couple pages each day is all we're doing. So that's been working really well. So that's our reading and our morning time thing that we do together. And then in order to kind of make it all stick, I wanted to do something kind of different, and so we had done when I was young, it's called History Tellers. It's actually a lady in Red Deer came up with this, and you can just, if you just Google search History Tellers, it's right there, History Tellers. You can find their webpage and all the information on it. And what this is not a complete curriculum. This is kind of, the skeleton. You need to supplement it with a book like I've done, but it is a really, really fun way for kids to remember and practice what they're learning so that you don't just read about it and then it's gone the next day. So what it is it has hand symbols for major events in Canadian history to help you remember. So I'm going to show you a couple just so you get the idea. So it starts off, First Nations, friends of the earth, masters of the land, exploration, colonization, Vikings, Vinland, European powers, England, France, and Spain, glory, God, and gain. So basically, I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you very much. Anyways, basically, so what it is, it's hand signals or symbols that the kids do that they learn for each of for major events in the Canadian history timeline. It's kind of like a living timeline, I guess you could say. And then the teacher guide that comes with this is fairly straightforward. So for each symbol, like First Nations, Friends of the Earth, there's this little teacher guide. So they have, a little picture. There's it shows you how to do the hand signals. There's also a little DVD that comes with it that shows you how to go through it all. And basically you learn all of Canadian history, I think in 90 seconds is what they say. So, but we're learning one at a time and then doing the background with it, so the symbols actually mean something to the kids. So that's why I said, you need more than just this. But this is a fun way to remember everything that you're learning. So for example, like exploration, colonization. So there's the page on that, and it gives you just a little summary of information to talk about. It's a good kind of way to discuss what we've read in our morning time. We do this, towards the end part of our morning time. And then once again, they've got this little Simon guy that tells you what the symbols are. And then what's kind of neat is for each, for exploration, colonization, then you get a student book and it's coloring pages. And so I made a little do-a-tang folder for all my kids, including my youngest, who's only 4, but then she feels like she's kind of part of things and she's learning the symbols too. And so for each one, they can do a little coloring page. And, coloring for my kids is hit and miss. Sometimes they like it, sometimes they do not. So whether we'll do a coloring page for every single one or not, so far they're doing it and they're liking it, and we'll let joy lead us in that. I'm not going to force them to do a coloring page if they don't want to. But, so anyway, so that's the little hand signal, and then a little summary of it, and then a coloring page. But I think it's kind of neat because then they sort of have I like that they're, have a gross motor thing that they're doing for the thing in history, and then they also have kind of like a visual picture that goes with it. It's just all to kind of, help them remember these things. So, yeah, so I think that's kind of neat. So we're doing that. So we read, we're doing our hand symbols, and then the last kind of piece of our Canadian history is a timeline. And I bought this. I talked about Lisa Marie, I believe is the name, the Canadian homeschooler, anyways, is her blog. I had bought her virtual trip across Canada unit study and we loved it. So I was like, oh, what else does she have? And she has a timeline resource. You can get up to Confederation or Confederation to present, so I just bought the whole thing. It's very under $20 anyways, very inexpensive, and so it's really neat, and I need a fancier something for it, but this is just up until Confederation. And so this is the cover, and I wish I had printed it out in color. didn't. I don't know, I guess maybe I didn't look far enough ahead to realize that there was some of the pictures in color. So anyway, so for this I put it together, and it was super easy to assemble once I figured out how to do it. So there's these pages, and they go in, and I ended up gluing them like back to back. Anyways, and then you have these little flip things, and these are the things on your timeline. So you've got, you know, your year spread up here. I'm going to go actually to the next page just to give you a better, because there's more that happens later on in Canadian history. But anyways, so like this is 1600 to 1699, and so then she has her events. They're these little, you know, half pages I cut out, and I can't get the page to turn. Here we go. And then you turn them, and then they're in chronological order. So you cut them out so that when you flip them, that they're in chronological order. So they've got the fur trade, and then it's a little summary on the fur trade. And so this has been really neat because we're reading about it, and then we look in the timeline, we're doing our hand signals. So it's kind of a multi-pronged approach to looking at these different things and helping it just kind of stick in the kids' minds. You know, there's Samuel de Champlain. I think I showed in the book where we read about him, and they're like, oh yeah, we remember him. And then it, you know, you can see here there's these little arrows, and it shows you, you know, this is Quebec City when Samuel de Champlain founded that. So, I mean, it's just lovely. Like I said, I would have printed it in color had I thought ahead a little bit more, but anyways. And so, yeah, these are just a really nice way to have a timeline, and I think it's a nice visual for the kids. You could put it up on the wall. I wanted it in a duotang so I can move it around with us, but so that is basically what we're doing for Canadian history. It sounds more complicated than it is, but it's really not. We just kind of read from our book, read a little from here, supplement it from my other book if I feel the need or not. We learn the hand symbols. We look in our little duotang timeline, and the kids color the page. And I think it's just a fun way for it all to sort of line up in their brains. I think for us, we're going to do Canadian history up until Confederation, and then we're going to stop, take a break, and do something else, because that was kind of what I wanted to focus on for now. And then we'll do Confederation to present maybe another year when they're just a tiny bit older. So that is it. We're excited. It's been going really well. We haven't completed it yet, but I've done enough with them to be confident that they are enjoying it. I think it's really bringing history to life for them, and it's been, I think, once again, standing up and doing those symbols together has really been a fun thing for them to do. And also, it is so good when you are out and about and you're at the grocery store and someone says, oh, you homeschool. Well, let me tell you, my friends, you can have your kids do the history of Canada in 90 seconds. It's very impressive. People like that. So that's my little tip from me to you. The other thing that I wanted to show you before I go is there is this series, and I believe you can get it at the library as well, but they are the Canadian Flyer series by Frida Wyszynski, I think. And anyways, these are just such nice little books. If you're familiar with the Magic Treehouse books, it's a same type of thing when we have like a little sled and they go back in time. The books, so they go back in time to different points in Canadian history, and they're not big books. They're not, you know, super hard to read. Like I said, if you're familiar with Magic Treehouse, they're very similar to that, only they focus solely on Canadian history. They don't go chronologically, but they go back, and these two kids go back in time and experience different points in Canadian history, and they're a lot of fun. So I read the first one to my kids and we really enjoyed it, but just because we've got other things going on, I've decided to have my 10-year-old read this to my 7-year-old. So they're working their way through the series. I think there are around 16 books, something like that. So yeah, that's a fun way to kind of experience some history, and then it gives them, you know, when we hit something that they read about, they read the one on Martin Frobisher, and when we were talking about that when we were doing history, they're like, oh yeah, we know all about Martin Frobisher. I was like, you do? And then anyways, I'm like, yeah, Mom. I was like, oh, that's great. So that's kind of fun. We also have these I think are from, I was younger. Mom had given them to me. They're Professor Noggin History of Canada, and I think they're a little hard for my kids maybe right now, but I think if we pulled them out, it's kind of like a trivia type game. So I think that's something I could pull out a little bit at a time and do some of those, so that could be fun. If you have kids who like trivia, that would be really good for them. There's also the Geography of Canada one. So just another way to kind of keep it exciting, keep history alive. And the last book that I wanted to show you was one by Kerry Wood. If you're familiar with Kerry Wood Nature Center, this book is by the man, Kerry Wood. And my mom, it's so wonderful. It's such a wonderful book. And I don't know that we're going to read it yet because I think it'd be too much for my second grader right now. But it's called The Map Maker. And it is the story of David Thompson. And since we are so, where we live where we do, and we're so close to Rocky Mountain House in that area, this is just a great book to do as a read aloud. So I remember my mom reading it to us, so it's a great recommendation. I think that we'll do it probably when my kids are a little bit older. So anyways, I hope you got some ideas of some ways that you can make history alive and fun for your kids and really make that the goal. Yes, we want them to learn about Canadian history, but at the same time, we want it to be something that they look favorably upon. And I think it is easy to get hung up on, well, will they remember it, or do they remember it perfectly? And we're not testing them, so how do I know they're remembering? But I don't think that's important. And not that we don't want them to learn, we do. But more than remembering facts or dates or memorizing certain things for an exam is I want my kids to do, what my childhood was, is we learned all this stuff, but to put in them the love of learning, to know that learning history is interesting and fun, and it's something that as an adult I can get excited about too. I'm not like, oh, okay guys, it's time to do Canadian history. That's not going to get them excited, and it's not going to serve them well as adults. Whereas if they can be excited and have a passion for learning, I mean, that is a greater gift than making sure that they memorize when John Cabot landed in Newfoundland. Those dates, they can look that up. That's what Google's for. But giving them the knowledge to know how to look something up, that's invaluable. And I think the other thing to point out is that I had a great teacher. I had the best teacher. My mom is amazing, and I had an amazing homeschool experience. We did all this stuff. I learned Canadian history, and I've forgotten a ton of it. But that's okay. I've functioned fairly well as an adult, and now I can rediscover it and learn it in a different way, in a different time with my children. And so I hope you can enjoy the experience of learning together and don't get too hung up on whether they're remembering every teeny tiny detail. You're sharing with things, you're laying with them, you're laying a foundation, and they will learn and they will remember things. So happy learning. Yay Canada. I've got my Oh Canada shirt on, which is, I love this shirt. I married an American, and so I was in the States for 10 years. So I love that I have this shirt and that it says A on it, because I got teased mercilessly for quite a few years for saying that, and now we're back in Canada, so it's fun that I can say A and not get made fun of, as long as I don't say it quite like that. So have a great year and happy learning with your kids. Bye.